water table? That's a good idea. And I just move our stuff off because it will work. Yeah, so it's a good idea there. There's like no one here. There's like no one here. This is normal. I know. Trust me. The first, I think like the first 3 times I did this conference, I was like, oh my god, that conference was such a disaster. Nobody showed up. And then I talked to Donna, and she was just like, this is how Congress talking about it. They're saying like one of the panels. One of the panels? Yeah. Oh, okay. So this person is Simon Fraser people. They are the ones that are. Okay. So let's just it's okay. So they're all together and let's leave them out for some. But he knows that they're he knows. Did they like order catered on it? I know, I kind of remember having it. Because I did it for 100.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, but, I've got other work too, but good luck with it. Take care of it.
Hey, how's it
Hey,
going?
good. Erica?
Would would I can hear you great. Would you like to click share content again and see if we can see your desktop?
Okay, can I say it now?
I can. It's slightly squished. Um,
This
just like
this works better?
uh, could could you try changing your resolution a little bit just to see if it adjusts the way it shows on
Okay.
my screen? It might not be something that can be adjusted on your end. If not,
Uh,
I'll
Let
try
me
something
see.
else.
Resolution. All right.
You know what? You know what? Leave yours alone for a sec. Sorry,
Is
your
this
other
okay?
people on. Let me try something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little better. I think it's okay. You want to go ahead and
Yeah,
share
so
full
I'm
screen?
basically going to grab my colleagues, and so we are going to compile everything like into the PDF. Then, so basically, we are going to running through the entire PDF in that way. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And you can hear me fine, right?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you are coming loud and clear. So
Okay.
we'll just have anybody who wants to ask a question talk into the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And your guys' stuff starts at
We we can't see anything because I think this is more kind of for us it's more audio. So
okay. So
yeah,
are you
because
saying
right now on my screen is basically say you are sharing your screen, right? So
and you can't see anything on you can't see me?
uh, is there a way I can shift the camera? Let me see. Hmm. Chat? No. Participants. So for everyone, this is PDX booth WS150. So all of the kind of the camera is kind of video off.
Huh. No, Booth is not
Oh, I can
uh,
see now. I can see now.
all right, cool. Yeah, Booth is the
Oh.
machine in my sort of back room that I use just to make sure the thing's working.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm going to find a kind of good arrangement for the windows. So
Hmm.
so do you see only the PDF, or you see like half and half now?
What we have is a two-screen setup, so that we got your face on one screen, and then the projector screen to the right of it had your desktop. It looked really good.
Good. So
Right now you're not sending anything though, and that's fine.
yeah. So oh, I see. So if I'm sharing the screen, I can't see anything. but I think it's fine. People can see me and my colleagues. That's okay. Then we can just present. Then we switch back. I think that's the plan. So you can see the PDF, right?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So I think we'll just do that. Thank you.
You
So
bet. What
right?
time are you guys actually starting?
I think we will start around. I think we are going to start. The actual time is 1:15. So we will be ready around 1 o'clock. Like
Uh,
now we got like 40 minutes. So basically for us, it's just going to grab our lunch, and then come back later.
Excellent. Well, this was already fired up and running, so we don't have to make any changes. You're going to stay connected, right?
Yeah.
And your machine's not
I'm
going to
going to
fall
move.
asleep, right?
Yeah, I'm going to move to another room because this is not my office here. So we're going to find an more comfortable
Oh,
office. This is more. If you see, this is one of the lounge area of the building of our university building.
okay. Okay.
And we got this amazing outside view. That's the reason, like I work here in the morning.
Oh, all right. Well, cool. So about 1 o'clock, I'll check in, and then just to make sure it connected okay.
Yeah, thanks. So basically, I just relog into this link, then everything's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah, should be good.
Yeah. Okay. Check with you later. Thank you for the help.
You bet. All right. Oh, I'm Doug, by the way.
Hmm?
My name is Doug, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Not you are not Erica. Yeah.
No, that's a girl.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So cameras here and cameras back here. But I think he's on. But we're good. Like not my thing. Yeah.
Hey, I see the screen is available. Are you? Hmm. Are you sending video?
I'm back.
Right on. Hey, would you like to go ahead and click the
Share
start
screen.
presenting or
Share screen.
that's the one. That's the one.
Okay, I'm going to switch to the. Let me see.
Excellent.
Looks
That looks
great.
great.
This is my friend. This is the first presenter's PowerPoint. So basically, after him, then go to mine. So the third presenter, she got into a traffic issue. But she's coming. So
Oh, I
yeah,
hope she's okay.
Vancouver is really crowded now. So like it's really like tough during this. Like we used to joke like peak hour, but right now it's more like in the downtown area. It's like peak hour forever. Get a lot of congestion.
uh,
Okay. Hide your sharing button. How do I see you from here? Nope. That's fine. I can just switch to this.
is that working?
I can't see people when I'm presenting, but I think it's fine.
Hmm. I
Yes.
think you can resize your window, like if you drag your window around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Uh.
You know what? It's because you're in multiple spaces.
Mm-hmm.
If you consolidated the spaces, I think you would stop having that problem.
Yeah, because the thing is here, if I stop sharing, so I can see everybody. But right now, it's just showing me you are sharing your screen. Other participants are seeing the applications and documents on your screen. But I think that's the issue. Like it automatically, I don't know how to change. Let me see the setting if I can.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think here, because we are sending to the system,
Oh, I see.
it's just, I think because we've got multiple spaces,
Mm-hmm.
you only see on your computer screen. Uh, Wait, my theory's falling apart now that I'm thinking about it.
That's fine. It's fine. We don't need to see people when we were doing the presentation because we will just see we are actually going to just see the PowerPoints. That's fine.
Can I ask when you stop sharing your screen, do you see me?
Okay, let me see. Stop sharing. Yes, I see you.
You do see me. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's happening, but once your presentations are over and it's time for Q&A, you can stop
Yeah,
sharing anyway, and then you will see the
we
people.
were we were shifting back for sure. Yeah,
All right, excellent.
it looks
Thank you.
great. I
So
mean,
you can start sharing, I guess after the introductions. You want to do that? Because the person introducing you.
my friend go first. Like my friend is the first presenter, so he is going first. I think he will do the introduction.
Okay. Oh, so the person on the far side is doing introductions. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
the second presenter, then the third one. Yeah.
Excellent. All
Good.
right, then I think we're good. Just if people start talking to you without talking to the microphone, just remind them there's a
Okay.
microphone standing on the lectern, and feel free to talk into that. All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Nice.
Hey, sorry about the grumpy this morning.
Don't worry about it. Just
Yeah, it's like five.就我们两个。
稍微等一下，我师傅，刚才我给你看有人开始了。然后这个我待会儿我弄吧，反正这个都已经连上了，待会儿直接切过来就行。对啊，你的完了就直接是我的。啊。
反正我就不要走过就行了，我就到最后我的停在那儿，然后。
你要做一下那个什么，你要做一下就整体的咱们这个 group 的 introduction very quickly， 就是河阳那些东西。
我在里面讲的。
对啊，你要讲一下，主要是你讲的。
那我在 presentation 里面讲就行了。我就是特意在 presentation 里介绍一下我们这个 project。
对啊，就是这个意思。
但是分不来啊。
就提一下他 got into traffic 嘛，然后能来就来，来不了就也就没有办法了。我去也是有点。
对啊。
又去上厕所。我的问题就是说，不好意思，他不来了。
是没 come in 嘛，无所谓。Hello。
那个。
Hey.
I'm sorry about my hair.
Yeah, thank you. There are actually a mic around. I think that's provides us a kind of better sound quality for the chat. I think. Um, so it's working, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing a full screen.
We got 3 in total, so that's the first one. This is mine. This is the second one. Okay, so it's working. The only thing is for me, I have to kind of switch back and forth to. Okay. Come on. Yeah, when I'm sharing the screen, I cannot see anything like going on within the conference room. But I was sharing when the presentation starts. So I think that works. Okay.不是，它这个系统是这个样子，就是它这个 screen share，当咱们一 share 的时候，就是咱们会看不到那边，但他们是可以看到咱们的，无所谓。
咱们看不到哪里？
咱们看到这个，因为咱们要切到那个 PowerPoint 上。
OK， 那没关系啊。等我们做完了再切到会场。
对，
我们也不用看他们的表情啊。
就是这样。
你帮我切一下就行。就看我 PowerPoint 在哪。
我待会儿把等待会儿开始的吧。
要 share screen 吧？
对，要开始的时候 share screen 就好。
我感觉都没什么。Janet 来 ，Janet。
Hey Janet。
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
There. How are you?
Good. Great.
Sorry you couldn't get across the border.
Yeah, that's what.
Virtually, we got crossed.
You are coming to our school anyway at the end of the month.
I'm going to see you in 2 weeks, 1 week.
I owe you that dinner.
You do.
I do. I know.
In Vancouver.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so you're set.
Yeah, well, one of our colleagues, Fan, she got traffic issue. She's trying, but she may not be able to make it. But anyway, we got two, so we can start. She's on her way.
There's only 2 of you?
Maybe we don't know yet. So,
Okay.
but we will try to kind of budget the time for her. If not, I think we can just kind of extend the Q&A period. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Good. I'll give her a call.
See you.
Okay, and 我们是只要那边he will go first. Let's go to work. There are 3 presentation
Right. Two so far.
we are the last.
Oh, okay. My name is Sungin. Oh, great. Pretty close. Okay, Sungin. I just go by Sung.
So, it's your last name. It's a very popular.
It's very popular. Oh,
我改个 PDF 哦，OK，好，谢谢。
that's easier. Oh, I thought that might be.
Just use the laptop.
Unless we have to use. Unless we have to use.
Are you assisting? Yes.
Oh.
Do you know anything about or you can go and find Doug.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah. So a suggestion is
像那个 project leader 对这个，but just 可以。
Presentation and I can bring it back.
oh yeah. So but we need to know. No,
Set a Mac format or PC? Oh, Mac. I have a computer I can bring. Yeah, I have one here.
so maybe this way.
Is there
Let me go
audio
get
or
your
just
check guys.
slides? Yeah. And then we can switch.
That's me.
Only. We're gonna test out a laptop real quick, so you might disappear from the screen for a second.
Okay, it's fine. Mm. 但咱们俩 screen 上 look 非常 weird，估计我闪开。
Can I use the computer here?
我先闪开。
不是，可以这样，就是说你坐到后面，然后你讲的时候我坐到后面，
就这样。
哎，就这样。然后你讲的时候。
Hi, can I help you guys with yeah, so here's so we've got Dev on Blue Jeans, right? He's got a presentation on his hard drive, so we can either have a
Okay. Did he switch the screen off here
Hmm?
somehow?
I switched it to okay, sorry. I gotta push the button. Okay, please. I didn't touch any of the all I touched was override tonight.
很好用，我发现它这系统比咱们这边好用。
这个 Blue Jeans 是哪里的？
Okay.
美国的。是木板直接。
Yeah, we want to make sure.
因为他们有两个机器啊，他们是同对，一来可以和咱们 Google Keep。
Oh, that's great. We can use
你们这个 screen 不会很大吧？看起来会很贵。
会啊，无所谓啊。
真的吗？
你不知道那边 screen 有多大，但是我觉得无所谓啊。
我记得我们至少我用 Skype 跟以前也做过，就是人是很小的。
不是这个不是，因为这个是 multiple screen， 就它那边是有两块屏幕的，一个是这个，另外一个是那 PPT。对的，我刚才他不是对，
给你设了一下。
对他不是他跟我说。
哎，怎么回事？
他说他们那边要切一下，无所谓的。等一下，还有5分钟吧，他们正式开始就。撒到10页，这是一个问题。
I'm doing shared presentation.
Okay, we haven't started, so we can do the share screen.
I just want to see if, can you just click yours for a sec? I want to see if I got my video conference thing back to normal.
All right, so I'm sharing it now. I'm switching back to the presentation.
I still got nothing coming through here.
Okay, this is it. So right now we are in the slides. I can try to reshare.
It's coming through on BlueJeans. We're just trying to get it on our screen.
Yeah, I lost my screen.
You can just hang tight. We're gonna.
That's cool. Yeah. Primary feed. Dual to Y. All right. So that's how we get this one. So now when I want this to be video, status. No, that's not what I want. Okay. And off. Are you guys seeing us now?
Actually,
because we were on the PowerPoint, you can see the PowerPoint, right? If I switch back, if I stop sharing, let me do this. If I switch back, I stop sharing, we can see you. But as long as we are starting sharing, we can't. But I think it's fine because when we're sharing, we're basically doing the PowerPoint slides.
yeah, we can only see the PowerPoint on our computer.
It's fine.
So,
Okay.
as you
Bill,
can see,
this isn't your. This is.
Okay.
Putting your PowerPoint back on the big.
Okay, so we are just going to bring back our.
Yeah, if you leave that, we'll work it out on our end.
All right. So can you see the PowerPoint?
We can't see yours. We've got to find a button over here.
Yeah. Huh.
It's not you guys. We just got to find a button. I got to call Sean. 1 second.
Okay.
So is the third person not there?
not yet.
She got a small car accident, so she's almost there. We were still waiting, but if she can't make it, we will just let you know. Then I think we can just extend the delay period. I think that would be.
Shared screen.
It's being fed, right?
On that incoming BlueJeans presentation.
What's your name?
Xiaoxin.
I'm Xiaoxin.
I'm Sibo. So he's the first presenter, Xiaoxin Zhang. So I'm the second one.
Okay, the third person's not here.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's not here yet.
Okay. If she does, I'll introduce her.
Okay, sure. Sorry, what's your name?
Sankar.
Sankar? Yeah. Let's see.
Let's see.
We're gonna try to solve this technical issue.
Mm-hmm.
One way to solve this, maybe we'll have him go first. Since his PowerPoint is up, and then introduce you guys afterwards.
Your entire screen. Yeah, sure. Okay, so can you see our desktop now?
Oh, we're gonna start. We might just go ahead and start with you. About 2 minutes, we'll make a decision. I want to make sure that.
嗯，
这个他们
Get started. Maybe we'll get
I
started
think
with the.
people will wander in.
Okay. Actually, why don't you go?
他说 get started。
Draw part.
Okay.
Because we're having trouble with the.
I see, okay.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll start. No, that's not right.
Switch back. Okay.
No, that's not working.
So we are going to start sharing now. Let me see.
Not quite working yet.
Is it working? Can you see the slides on the screen?
No, it stopped working. We hit a button and it just stopped working.
Okay. Huh, that's weird. I'm going to. I'm. So nothing showing up here.
It's our
Okay.
side. It's not your side. It's our end. It's our system.
Yeah. Okay. I think it should working now. Is it working?
He's bringing somebody back.
Oh, okay, okay, great.
Got it?
Well, we see it on this screen, but we don't see it on the big screen.
Oh, I think yeah.
And that's our system, not your system.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's coming.
Hmm. In the small screen.
Mm-hmm.
On the projector.
Yeah, no.
Wait, yeah.
It is a problem. No.
We've got somebody coming to fix it in just a second.
Okay. Can we get this other one on the screen?
We've already seen how to get that other one on the screen.
Because we can get them started now. They can do their presentation.
I gotta let that guy do his stuff. I'm sorry. Just
That's fine. That's fine.
因为底下会看不到。
Maybe what I'll do is I'll introduce everybody and get the introductions done first. Welcome to the Asia panel, and my name is Sun Park. I'm co-director of the Multimedia Master's Program here in Portland, but I mainly teach down in Eugene, Oregon, and I teach photojournalism and multimedia. We have two of our three speakers from Simon Fraser University. Xiaoxing Zhang, he's with communications at Simon Fraser University in Canada. He will be talking about a dreamland or the land of broken dreams, juxtaposed with imaginations of good life in Heiyang. We have Sibo Chen, social science and humanities at Simon Fraser University in Canada, and his presentation is towards multiple concepts of human-nature relationships, Mother Nature found in a Chinese village. The other is Yinfang Huang, and she is not here at the moment, but if she does arrive, we will kind of reintroduce her. With us today, we have Mei Ling Su, Journalism, and Sungjian Shi, International Communications, National Chengchi University in Taiwan. And they will present on what motivates people to engage in individual versus civic level of pro-environmental actions in a time of climate change, the role of communications, perception, and belief in an East Asian context. Oh, look at that. So why don't we start with Xiaowing Zhang. We have your image up on the screen now, so you're ready to go. And about 12 to 15 minutes, so close to 12 would be best since we got a little bit of a late start. So
Okay.
Here we go.
Thank you, Song. And we would like to give special thanks to Jenny Wasco, who invited us to present at this fantastic conference and also give us this opportunity to present virtually from Vancouver. Since the 1970s, intellectual and public discourses in China were shifted to favor the criticism of peasantry and rural life as backward, harboring remnants of feudal thinking and the root cause of China's slow development and its violent history. It was believed that only by modernizing the countryside could the Chinese peasants be turned into citizens and Chinese society become truly modern. However, over the last 2 decades, Chinese urbanites started to relocate their imaginations of the good life to the countryside as a result of the increasingly overcrowded urban space, serious air pollution, food safety risks, and so on and so forth. Embodied in a surge of rural tourism and reality TV shows featuring the countryside as the place of the good life, rural China has been culturally appropriated and made into a spectacle of nostalgia. Under such an urban-centric dichotomous characterization of rural life, voices of the poor and the powerless in the past and present rural China has been largely marginalized, suppressed, and even muted at all. As an integral part of the From Global to Village Grounding Communication Research Project, this research aims to listen to the suppressed rural voices, to explore the various conceptions of the good life in the countryside, and to unfold the complexities of rural issues in contemporary China. Heyang, a village located in the poorer and more isolated mountainous region of the rich and globally integrated coastal Zhejiang province, was chosen by Professor Yue Zhizhao as the site for a collective field research project called From Global to Village Grounding Communication Research. And focus group discussion was chosen as the main research method and was combined with in-depth individual interviews as well as participant observation. As one of the 12 researchers who participated in this project, together with my 2 other colleagues here, also the 2 other presenters at this panel, I went through 8 focus groups from July 4th to July 7th in the main ancestral hall of the village, with a total of 94 adult participants from different educational and income levels and representing different residential groups. Snowball sampling was then used to recruit more respondents for individual interviews. 9 individual interviews were conducted in a semi-structured way with 585 minutes of recording. Living in the village over 2 weeks, I was also able to engage in participant observation through all kinds of daily activities, such as walking around the village after dinner, having meals with the villagers, and taking part in recreational activities such as playing mahjong. Based upon the fieldwork, the research presents 4 different conceptions of the good life, coexisting, interacting, and even contradicting with each other in the contemporary Heyang village. I term them as follows. The first one, a pastoral life depicted in an appropriated agrarian mythology, and then a revived traditional thought that emphasized the private access to and control of land dwellings and livestock. The third one, a gentrified rural life modeled after the aesthetics of urban middle class. And finally, a communitarian conception of the good life that defines the good as the common good as the true good. Like many other Chinese villages, Heyang has been trying to reconfigure itself into a popular tourist destination over more than a decade through the preservation, reproduction, and recreation of traditional village landscapes. heritage architectures, pre-industrial domestic tools, cultural traditions, and folk activities. At the core of these attempts to satisfy tourists' desire for a green, peaceful, and pleasant countryside lies a reproduced mythology about ancient Heyang, in which it was better to marry into Heyang than to become a queen. Through appropriating this agrarian mythology and weaving it into the contemporary romantic image of the village, Heyang is thus constructed as a Shangri-La, where the superiority of rural life has been well preserved for over 1,000 years, and the redemptive conception of the good life has been inherited alongside the various cultural heritages of the village. However, as Raymond Williams once pointed out, defense of the vanishing countryside could become deeply confused with the defense of the old rural order. Historically, Heyang had long been a village of landlords rather than a village of peasants. This long-lasting good life of Heyang was highly contingent upon its close connection with the imperial court, as well as its intensive exploitation upon the surrounding villages of peasants. Besides, the agrarian mythology only described where the girl got married, but not whom she was going to marry. In this way, ancient Heyang was abstracted away from its concrete social relations and class antagonism, and the ideas of the ruling class about the good life become the ruling ideas. Last but not least, this particular version of the good life was exclusive to a rich and well-developed region of ancient China, which was then the economic center of the whole country since the late Tang Dynasty. By disclosing the above problematics, it is apparent that the good life of ancient Heyang was largely the result of uneven regional development and class struggles at that historical moment, representing the superiority of landlord life in a wealthy area of ancient China. However, beneath this luring image of pastoral life in the countryside, Heyang, as many other Chinese villages, is experiencing a dramatic social polarization. Simply concerning the village's housing conditions, Heyang can be generally divided into two realms. One consists of neat, clean, and spacious apartments, while the other comprises shabby, messy, and cramped heritage houses, resulting in dramatically different life pursuits and ideals. The majority of the underdeveloped families still living in the heritage houses, which are the main tourist attractions in this rural theme park. However, during 15 years tourism development, these households have only received 100 Chinese yuan each as their payment so far, and a garbage can, plus a garbage can to remind them of the tourist expectation on a clean rural experience. Besides, since most of the heritage houses have already stood there for hundreds of years, issues of roof leaks, cracked walls, and sloping floors are omnipresent, while the regular renovation is merely a scheduled maintenance of the exhibition rather than a repair of the dwellings to provide a comfortable accommodation for its residents. In order to maintain the oldness of these heritage houses as to perpetuate an authentic rustic image, the renovations are usually conducted with used materials, some of which are even rotten, broken, and out of shape. As a consequence, life in the heritage houses is even more undesirable and risky experience for the residents. At the same time, according to the governmental regulations on the protection of cultural heritages, rural residents are prohibited from demolishing the heritage houses for residential redevelopment. And given their economic status, purchasing commercial real estates in the nearby town is both unrealistic and impossible. Being both administratively prohibited from demolishing the old houses and economically prevented from moving away, they are literally imprisoned in almost unlivable heritage houses. Benefiting the least while suffering the most from the protection of heritage houses, the underdeveloped families in the village start to call them the houses of suffering. A collective yearning for stopping tourism development, demolishing heritage houses, and building new houses for the poor families becomes increasingly prominent. More and more households even start to make their homes smelly, dirty, and messy by turning their own dwellings into a disgusting place to keep tourists away. These people trying to deconstruct the romantic conception, the agrarian mythology of the good life, and trying to fulfill their own conception of the good life. That is a simple idea of having a decent home. In sharp contrast, the rich families in the village have already owned new mansions, well furnished and decorated with gardens, rockeries, and fountains. Within these families, many young people choose to move into the city, only coming back to the village for vacation, while seniors prefer to stay at home to enjoy the rural idyll. Although their conception of the good life is also located in the countryside, it's definitely not the pastoral life depicted in the agrarian mythology, but rather a gentrified rural life, remodeled after the aesthetics of urban middle class. Well-to-do women in the village, in their favorite pastime of taking selfies in front of Heyang's iconic Asian heritage houses, started to fetishize qipao, also known as the Mandarin gown, which was created in Shanghai in 1920s and made fashionable by urban upper class women. And it is obvious that they prefer to live in their well-furnished villas rather than stay back in the heritage houses. Living in the villas modeled after urban suburban trains and decorated with commodified rural symbols, these developed households have apparently bought into the conspicuous consumer aesthetics and the unreal decorative simulation of the rurality created by their urban imitators. In this regard, their conception of the good life has been homogenized into a rural popular culture and reduced into mimicry of suburban aesthetics. Finally, during Mao's era, Heyang, and like many other Chinese villages, experienced the theories of transformative processes such as land reform, the cooperative movement, the establishment of village congress, the establishment of people's commune, and so on and so forth. All of these socialist memories have been woven into a particular narrative of good life, in which people's personal interests are so inextricably bound with each other, and only by achieving the good life for the community as a whole can each single member of the community fulfill their own life pursuits. However, this communitarian conception of the good life has been heavily suppressed and marginalized by a historical revision in the reform era, as if it has never existed as a tradition of this village. However, because of this intensive marginalization, this communitarian thinking is more willing to go beyond the local context and to address unfairness in different social settings, and to associate with the suppressed, marginalized groups at regional, national, and even global levels. It represents a form of social imagination with global scope that comes from localities and networks of localities under the same suppressed situation. In this process, the villagers do not have to become the idealized world citizens. They could remain domestic and particularistic in their orientation, but engage with their households and local community struggles. But at the same time, they are actually participating in emergent global politics. And that's my preliminary findings based upon my field work in Heyang. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, next we'll get the presentation from Thibaut Chen.
Okay, so thank you. So bear with me because I'm going to read most of the content from my slides, so you will see me kind of weirdly staring at the screen. So bear with me. Thank you. So like Xiaoxin said, so basically this is one of those group projects. So we went to Heyang as a team. So we got 12 researchers working on different aspects. and led by Professor Yue Zhizhao here at School of Communication, Simon Fraser. Xiaoxin's project is more about the imagination of reality in contemporary China, and within the village itself, and also by urban dwellers, right? For my project, I'm looking more at the aspects of nature, how people in Heyang understand nature, and what kind of implication of that for the general literature in environmental communication, which like the field I work in. Okay, so begin with. So considerable research attention within environmental has been paid to the ways we define, discuss, and interpret the concept of nature. So research addressed basically within environmental communication, most of the research have been talking about how its representation in news, advertisements, movies, and this research strand has expanded significantly over the past 2 decades. So within this particular research strand, so it has been heavily influenced by two critical social theories follow the Western Marxism tradition of Frankfurt School. So one is alienation from nature. The other one is social construction of nature. So the prevalence of both theories also highlights their underlying theoretical limitation. That's where I studied the project, more from kind of theoretical perspective. So to talk about the alienation from nature, so this concept has been extensively addressed in the literature of critical ecologies. And so the traditional interpretation of this theory claims that we are alienated from nature because we fail to recognize we are part of it. And as a result, we act anthropologically by treating nature simply as raw material at our disposal. So within this kind of traditional interpretation, alienation simply refers to the process of separation. And to overcome the process of alienation means that we need to give up anthropocentrism and keep our practices ecologically sustainable. And the kind of the limitation of this kind of traditional interpretation is that given nature is the physical world and its laws independent from humanity. So this is a very typical modernist view of nature within this kind of modernity. So alienation from nature becomes an ontological necessity that defines the uniqueness of humans. In other words, if we follow the traditional interpretation, alienation almost become inevitable. So how do we actually go beyond alienation from nature? That's one of the huge theoretical issue a lot of critical theorists try to deal with around like 1950s to 60s. So within that context, we see a revision, a theoretical revision. So there comes the revised interpretation, which consider nature is indeed beyond us, but it is anthropocentrism that leads us to the misconception that we can fully domesticate and control nature. A very interesting discussion within this particular revision is talking about basic and surplus alienation from nature. So basic alienation means biological necessity for human life, while surplus alienation means the degree only made necessary in particular form of social organization. This is basically Andrew Beho's idea. It's kind of extension of Habermas, talking about basic suppression versus surplus suppression. So essentially, this is more like we acknowledge the necessity of alienation, but we should control the degree of alienation. But there still remains the problem. So the ontological distinction between human and nature remains unsolved, and a complete overcome of alienation remains impossible. So as a result, a lot of critical ecologists, especially those who follow Marxism, propose a radical interpretation, say the traditional interpretation is incorrect. We should reconsider what we actually mean by alienation, and they propose to return to the Marxian understanding of alienation. So Steve Wagle is the most prominent one arguing this idea. He argues that the term nature today only denotes the built environment we inhabit, and alienation from nature should be redefined as our failure in recognizing the world we inhabit is socially constructed. So this is basically a material interpretation of social constructivism. And this echoes a lot of the feeling we get. So Bill McKibben, another very prominent critical ecologist, also basically say his most famous slogan is "Nature is dead," because all the representation of nature we know is actually already being humanized. Like the urban environment we live in, all the green plants, they are not nature because they're basically human created. So that leads to social construction of nature. Basically, one of the most used concept within environmental communication research. So social construction of nature argues that our perceptions of nature are influenced by social, political, and cultural contexts, and specific symbolic constructions of nature have been used ideologically to achieve various communicative purposes. And this basically reflects the postmodernist view that seeks to overcome the binary construction of human nature under Cartesian dualism. So nature, the concept, is generated by culture and then conceptualized in the human sphere. So at the heart of this particular theory is the idea that a strong commitment to deconstruct nature-related representations and their mediating effects. And that's a lot of the previous research in environmental communication trying to do. But there's still kind of two problems. So I won't, because due to the limitation of time, I won't go deep here. So basically, ontologically, so this thing has been challenged for its contradiction to the materialist account of nature. And epistemologically, this theory has been criticized for its ambiguous relativism because it really de-emphasizes the kind of material reality of the world. So to recap, so a lot of the current research within environmental communication focus on focus on the idea about social construction of nature, and it's basically most of them is wrestling around Cartesian dualism, and there is not a satisfying solution. So although social constructivism attempts to solve this problem by either de-emphasizing or rejecting the division between human and nature, this approach is hardly satisfying if moral stands are extended to non-human creatures and nature itself. So the question I have before starting the project is it worth considering whether another type of claim on human nature relation can be made by going beyond the paradigm of Western epistemology. So here, the case study is part of, like Xiaoxing already said, the case study is part of the Heyang project. So for my part, I'm looking at non-Western social imagination of nature found in the Chinese rural context, and in this case, Heyang. So very briefly mention two particular contexts in that small village, which is really important for the study of everyday understanding. The first is that village is in a mountainous landscape area of Zhejiang province. So basically that makes agriculture remains the production mode, the primary mode of production there. And it's basically this kind of traditional family-based small-scale agriculture activity on a daily basis. So it's very, very agriculture compared with this kind of the understanding of urban China. And also for that particular village, because it's very close to the kind of the cultural sphere of both Taoism and Confucianism in the province. So both kind of thoughts presents within this particular small knowledge, and this kind of traditional wisdom facilitates the way villagers there understand nature. And to very quickly talking about the finding. So the most noticeable finding, the most notable pattern I found through my field work is, so for the focus group participants in my focus group, so the term environmental issue only refers to problems found in their living context with no distinction made between humanized and non-humanized environment. So although most of the focus group participants acknowledge their desire for modern infrastructure and improvements to their livelihoods, they viewed these improvements as a way of accommodating instead of transforming their rural locality built on collective land ownership and a small-scale agriculture. In other words, they have shown a resistance against the idea that they will become urbanized. They kind of resist the idea of being urbanized. So these participants held an exceptionally unified pride of Heyang being a place close to nature. That's something they have referred again and again during our group interviews. And they also shared serious concern about the efficacy of Heyang's current development plan, and they expressing strong pessimistic feelings about the benefits. Like Xiaoxing said, there is a tourism project going on. So they expressed strong pessimistic feelings about the potential benefits of that project. So for these residents, issues become environmental hazards when they cause inconvenience to everyday life. So whether these issues impose potential threats to non-human creatures or nature itself made little sense. It just doesn't. The way, if we're thinking about the way the Western context address environmental issues, in many cases, we justify the series of issues like its threats to non-human nature or threat to the nature itself. But this particular frame I tested around my group participants, but they just simply that does not click with them, like it doesn't make sense with them. And for them, nature is not only for exploitative or romantic gazes. To the contrary, it is embodied in the farmland they work on, the mountain they climb, as well as the livestock they raise. So basically for them, I asked the question particularly, what does the term nature means for you? And a lot of people express the idea it's basically part of their life. So, and also they, like what Xiaoxin had found, they also express a sense of nostalgia in terms of what is considered as nature. So basically, every focus group I interviewed, they talking about the old good days in Heyang when the water is still clean, the air is still fresh. So although in many cases, like such kind of discussion eventually ended up in kind of people's complaints about the current governance, like the Heyang Village Council, and basically talking about their inability. But also, in my opinion, the way they're talking about the old good days as a way to legitimize their own criticism and echo others. So basically, this becomes a cognitive frame. People goes back and back again. The image of old good days in Heyang, like the good nature back then. So, with all being said, that's a very quick brief of the research results. So what can we learn from it, right? So the way Heyang residents attach meanings to their surrounding environment should not be confused with the spectacle nature frame held by many Chinese urban residents today. So nature for them is an inseparable part of their daily lives. And it seems appropriate to summarize the public understanding of nature among Heyang residents as an instantation of the indigenous notion of human nature unity, which emphasizes a reciprocal and harmonious human-nature relationship. And this also echoes what has been discussed a lot about the village rationality in China, right? So it basically the idea how the Chinese rural-oriented society structure being maintained for thousands of years. And so within that particular system, the ideas of harmony, the ideas of reciprocal relation between human and nature have been talked again. And what I have through my case study, what I have found is even though China is urbanizing for sure, but within rural contexts like Heyang, this kind of reciprocal relation has been largely maintained and reserved due to the fact that their everyday activity is still based upon agriculture in everyday culture. So to quickly summarize, so what I have argued is that the existing conceptualization of nature in mainstream critical social theory, including both alienation from nature and social constructivism, they fail to pay attention to the cultural variations underlying this concept, especially when environmental commentary are directly exported to non-Western communities, and to overcome such essentialist tendency. So what I have suggested that we need a theoretical move toward pluralistic understandings of nature, and so that we can reappropriate. So we can reappropriate non-Western epistemological paradigms in coexistence and dialogue with the dominant Western ones. And that's my presentation. So both Xiaoxin and so basically there are a couple of papers within our research group is going to be published by International Journal of Communication. It's coming up pretty soon. So if you can check out like the full papers there. Thank you. So I think we are shifting back to the big screen.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna hear from our presenters here, and then we'll open up for questions afterwards. So, presenting will be Mei Ling and Sung Jian. Why don't we do this? While we get the technical people here, are there any questions for the first two presenters?
Hi, can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I'm interested in learning more about the Heyang project. How did you build a connection there? And who did you invite, in, for example, for your focus group? Um, so just in general, because it feels to me that although you two are talking about the locals idea and the image of rurality, but simply because of the international connection, like you are doing research there, so it seems like um, there might be a global aspect in the people's life. Otherwise, it's hard for me to imagine a rural village that has global connection that we will enable international scholars to conduct research there. So that's just one of the questions that I have.
You want to go first?
We can sort of collaboratively answer this question. I would say there are scholars talking about multiple Chinas, and Chinese villages are so different from the north to the south, from the east to the west. And, we in the West, many people have a stereotypical understanding of Chinese villages in contemporary China, but actually, especially on the east coast and more developed areas, the villages are quite global. And if you went to the countryside there, they are all using smartphones. You know, they have great internet connections, and many of the people from the villages, through different educational channels, they even went abroad to study. And Professor Yue Zhizhao at the School of Communication at Simon Fraser University was one of the scholars that coming from Heyang village. So she was born there. So that was the primary connection, but it was a kind of a miniature of the bigger picture of Chinese rural areas. Now, it's not a closed, backward place per se, but in general.
Yeah. So basically, it's like this procure really repeat because we got a really good local informant like Professor Zhao here, and also because this was not one of those really isolated village in the West. It's like a village which is taking off. It still has this kind of rural aspects, but it's also kind of being globalized because it's in one of the rich coastal province in China, right, Zhejiang. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We're going to continue with the presentations. If you can hang tight, there might be another question towards the end. Okay, great.
I'm Tong Zhen, from the National Church University in Taiwan, and this is and we both paper. So before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction about our project, and I think this represents a continuous effort in tracking public opinion about climate change in Taiwan. Professor Xu started doing public since 2009 to 11, and I joined the project in 2013. And this is our the presentation we're going to make today. Use the data that we collected in 2015. So we have been doing this for a couple of years, and the 2015 data is also an extension of our previous surveys. This is the background of what we have been doing. And because we have several different large-scale phone survey data, we are unable to present everything based on what we have collected. So today we decided to focus on the parts of public participation. And when we talk about public participation, we mainly focus on two aspects. One is the mitigation efforts that people should be engaged in order to reduce the negative effects made by climate change. And the other is more about the civic participation part. So it refers to the action that we do to encourage the government or to encourage the policies to be made in order to also mitigate negative change. So in this paper, we focus on these two type of public participation. And the reason why we would like to focus on public participation is that there has been some paradigm shift in terms of how risk governance has been made. And before, we all know that there's a more technology-centric or expert-centric type of risk governance, which also represents a more top-down method of governance. But as we know that when science transforms from a more regular science to a more post-normal science, now we are facing issues with increasing uncertainty and also with more higher stakes. And so more people are influenced, and all the risks are imposed on us in a more urgent way. Okay, so these are not the regular type of science that people used to face like decades ago. So the way that we manage those risks should also be different. Um, so it will be some modern methods of risk communication. So a lot of this decision makings and also the effectiveness of mitigation depends a lot on how people actually can realize those actions. So that's why we focus on public. So some background of Taiwan. Taiwan is located in the southeast of the Pacific Ocean. So we perceive ourselves to be highly vulnerable to negative effects of climate change.